You reply fast. You show up instantly. You're always there, always ready, always available. And you think that makes you a good person, respectful, reliable, valuable. But here's the truth. It doesn't. It makes you predictable, and predictable people get ignored. Not because they're bad, but because they're always there. And anything that's always there loses value. Think about it. The things you value most are not always available. They're limited, they're controlled, they're rare, and that's what makes them valuable. But you're always there, always answering, always giving, always adjusting your time for others. And slowly, without realizing, you lower your value. Because you're telling people, my time is always open for you. My attention is always available. My priorities can wait. And people learn that. They adapt to it. They expect it. And once something becomes expected, it stops being appreciated. That's the reality. You think you're being kind, but you're actually training people to treat you casually, to take you for granted, to assume you'll always be there. And when that happens, respect drops. Not because people hate you, but because they don't feel the need to value you. Because you've made yourself easy to access, easy to reach, easy to ignore. And that's the problem. Because respect comes from boundaries, from control, from knowing when to be available and when not to be. But you don't do that. You respond instantly. You say yes quickly. You adjust your schedule. You sacrifice your focus. For what? For approval? For validation? For the feeling of being needed? And that's where it gets dangerous. Because now you're not just being available, you're being dependent. Dependent on being noticed, on being accepted, on being included. And that means you're not in control anymore. They are. Their messages, their timing, their attention controls your behavior. And that's not respect. That's loss of control. Because someone who respects themselves doesn't move like that. They don't respond instantly to everything. They don't prioritize others over themselves all the time. They don't make themselves constantly available. Because they understand something. Value comes from control, from boundaries, from knowing their time matters, their attention matters, their energy matters, and they don't give it away freely. Not to everyone, not all the time. Because once you do, you lose leverage, you lose presence, you lose importance. And that's why people start ignoring you. Not because you're not good enough, but because you're too accessible, too easy, too predictable. And predictable people don't get respected. They get used. And the worst part? You don't even see it happening. Because you think, I'm just being nice. I'm just being available. I'm just being a good person. But being good doesn't mean being available all the time. Being respectful doesn't mean sacrificing your boundaries. Being kind doesn't mean lowering your value. And until you understand that, nothing changes. You'll keep giving, keep responding, keep adjusting, and people will keep taking, keep expecting, keep ignoring, because you taught them to, through your actions, through your availability, through your lack of boundaries. That's the truth. Cold, uncomfortable, but real. So now, you have to decide. Are you going to keep being available, or are you going to start being valuable? Because you can't be both, not at the same level. And whatever you choose, that's how people will treat you. Because nobody is coming to fix this for you. And the respect you don't demand, you will never receive.
They don't say it out loud. They don't tell you directly, but they show it through how they treat you, through how they respond to you, through how they prioritize you. And if you pay attention, you'll notice something. The more available you are, the less they value you. It doesn't make sense at first. You think, if I'm always there, they should respect me more. If I respond fast, they should appreciate me more. If I give my time, they should value me more. But that's not how it works, because value is not based on how much you give. It's based on how rare you are. And when you're always available, you're not rare. You're common, you're expected, you're predictable. And predictable things lose their impact. Think about it. When something is limited, you pay attention, you respect it, you value it, because you know you can't have it any time. But when something is always there, you stop noticing it, you stop appreciating it, you start assuming it'll always be there. And that's what people do with you. They assume. They assume you'll reply. They assume you'll show up. They assume you'll adjust. And because of that, they don't prioritize you. They don't rush for you. They don't respect your time. Because you've shown them your time is always available. And availability reduces urgency. And without urgency, there is no value. That's the psychology. Cold, simple, real. You think respect comes from being good, from being helpful, from being there. But respect actually comes from control, from boundaries, from knowing when to say no, from knowing when to delay, from knowing to choose yourself over others, because that shows something. It shows you have priorities. It shows your time is limited. It shows you're not just there for anyone at any time, and that creates value. Because now people can't predict you. They can't assume. They have to adjust. They have to respect your time. They have to earn your attention, and that changes everything. But when you're always available, they don't need to earn anything. They don't need to try. They don't need to respect you, because you're already giving everything, freely, constantly, without limits. And anything given like that loses value, not because it's not good, but because it's too easy to get. That's the truth, and it's uncomfortable because it goes against what you believe. You've been taught, be nice, be available, be there for people. And those things, they're not wrong, but without boundaries, they become weakness, because being available all the time is not kindness. It's lack of control. It's lack of self-respect. And people feel that, even if they don't say it. They feel it, and they respond to it by lowering their respect, by lowering their effort, by lowering their priority for you. Not consciously, but naturally, because that's how human behavior works. We value what we can't always have. We respect what has limits. We prioritize what feels rare. And if you remove all limits, you remove all value. So now you have to see it clearly, without emotion, without excuses, without trying to justify it. Because until you do, you'll keep repeating the same pattern. You'll keep giving, keep being available, keep lowering your value, and wondering, why don't people respect me? But the answer is right here. Because you didn't create value. You created access, unlimited access, and unlimited access kills respect every time. So now you have a choice. Keep being available or start being selective. Keep giving your time freely or start controlling it. Keep lowering your value or start building it. Because respect is not given, it's created through how you carry yourself, through how you manage your time, through how you allow others to access you. And if you get that wrong, everything else falls apart. So fix it now, because nobody is coming to teach people how to respect you. You teach them through your behavior, through your boundaries, through your standards. And if you don't set them, they won't exist. And without them, You'll always be available and never truly respected.
You think being nice is a strength. You believe if you're kind, if you're respectful, if you always treat people well, they will value you, they will respect you, they will appreciate you. But reality doesn't work like that, because there's a difference, a big difference between being kind and being too nice. Kindness comes from strength. It's a choice. It has boundaries. It has control. But being too nice, that's different. That comes from fear, from the need to be liked, from the need to avoid conflict, from the need to be accepted. And people can feel that. Even if you don't say it, even if you don't realize it, they feel it in how you talk, in how you respond, in how you act. They feel that you're trying to be liked, trying to be accepted, trying to not upset anyone. And when people feel that, they don't respect it, they use it. Because being too nice means you don't set boundaries, you don't say no, you don't push back, you don't stand firm. You adjust, you agree, you give in, even when you don't want to, even when it costs you. And that's where the problem begins, because respect comes from strength, from clarity, from knowing where you stand. And when you're too nice, you don't show that. You show flexibility, too much flexibility, the kind that bends under pressure, the kind that changes for others, the kind that sacrifices itself to keep peace. And that sends a message, a silent message. I won't challenge you. I won't disagree. I won't create tension. And people learn that. They see that. They test that. And once they know you won't push back, they stop respecting your boundaries because you don't enforce them. They start asking more, taking more, expecting more because they know you won't say no. And the more you allow, the less they value you. Not because you're not good, but because you're too easy, too agreeable, too accommodating. And anything that's too easy loses its importance. That's the harsh truth. You think being nice will protect your relationships, but without boundaries, it destroys your value. Because now you're not respected, you're tolerated, you're not prioritized, you're used. And the worst part? You don't even notice it at first, because it feels normal, because you're used to giving, used to adjusting, used to putting others first. But over time, it starts to feel different. You feel drained, you feel overlooked, you feel like people don't value you the same way. And you don't understand why. Because in your mind, I'm doing everything right. I'm being good to people. I'm treating everyone well. But that's not enough, because respect is not built on how nice you are. It's built on how you carry yourself, how you set boundaries, how you respond when something doesn't feel right. And being too nice stops you from doing that. It makes you avoid conflict, avoid tension, avoid anything that might upset someone. And in doing that, you upset yourself. You sacrifice your time, your energy, your priorities, just to maintain peace. But peace without respect is not real. It's imbalance, and imbalance always leads to loss. Your loss, because you're the one giving more, you're the one adjusting more, you're the one sacrificing more. And eventually, it catches up. You feel it, the frustration, the quiet resentment, the feeling that something is off. But you don't change, because your identity is tied to being nice, to being the good person, to being the one who never says no. And that identity, it traps you. Because now, you're not just being nice, you're afraid not to be. Afraid people will leave, afraid people will judge you, afraid people will see you differently. But here's the truth. If someone only values you when you're always nice, they don't respect you. They rely on you. And there's a difference. Respect comes with boundaries. Reliance comes from your lack of them. And you have to decide which one you want, because you can't have both. You can't be endlessly nice and expect deep respect.
You can't always agree and expect to be taken seriously. You can't always adjust and expect to be valued. So something has to change. Not your kindness, but your control. Not your respect for others, but your respect for yourself. Because real strength is not in always being nice. It's in knowing when not to be, when to say no, when to stand firm, when to protect your time, your energy, your boundaries. And once you do that, everything shifts. People treat you differently, not because you became harsh, but because you became clear. Clear about your limits, clear about your value, clear about who you are. And clarity creates respect, not niceness. So stop trying to be liked by everyone. Stop trying to avoid all conflict. Stop trying to be the nice version of yourself all the time, because that version is costing you your value, and nobody is coming to fix that for you. So fix it yourself by choosing respect over approval, boundaries over comfort, strength over constant niceness, because the moment you do, you stop being used and start being respected.
You say yes a lot, more than you realize. Someone asks, you agree. Someone needs, you respond. Someone calls, you show up. And you don't even think about it. It's automatic, natural, almost instinctive. Because in your mind, saying yes means you're helpful, reliable, easy to work with, a good person. But what you don't see is the cost. Because every time you say yes, you're saying no to something else. Your time, your focus, your priorities. You're trading them away without thinking, without questioning, without measuring the impact. And over time, that becomes a pattern, a habit, a default response. Yes, no matter what, no matter when, no matter how it affects you. And that's where the problem begins. Because saying yes too much removes your control. It gives others access to your time, to your energy, to your life. And once that access becomes unlimited, you lose power. Not in a loud way, not in a dramatic way, but in a silent, consistent way. Because now, you're not deciding your day. Others are. Their requests, their needs, their timing shapes your schedule. And you adjust, you adapt, you follow. And that's not strength, that's submission. Because someone who has control doesn't say yes to everything. They choose, they filter, they decide what matters and what doesn't. But you don't do that. You react. You respond. You agree. And that makes you predictable, available, easy to use. Because people learn, they see your pattern, they test your limits. And when they realize there are no limits, they stop respecting your time. They start expecting your yes, not appreciating it, expecting it. And that's the shift from value to access, from respect to assumption. Because once your yes becomes automatic, it loses meaning, it loses weight, it loses value. And now, you're not choosing, you're complying. And the worst part? You don't even notice it. Because it feels normal, because you've been doing it for so long, because you've tied your identity to being the one who says yes, the reliable one, the available one, the helpful one. But that identity, it's costing you. Because now you don't prioritize yourself. You don't protect your time. You don't set boundaries. You just keep saying yes, even when you're tired, even when you don't want to, even when it doesn't align with your goals. And every time you do that, you weaken yourself. You lower your standards. You reduce your control. And slowly, you lose respect, not just from others, but from yourself. Because deep down, you know. You know you're giving too much. You know you're saying yes when you shouldn't. You know you're sacrificing your own priorities for things that don't really matter. And that creates frustration, quiet, internal, but real. Because now you're not living your life, you're reacting to others. And that's not power, that's dependency. And dependency kills self-respect. Because you're no longer in charge, you're no longer deciding, you're no longer leading, you're following. Through every yes, through every agreement, through every moment where you chose comfort over control. Because saying yes is easy. It avoids conflict. It avoids tension. It avoids saying no and dealing with the reaction. But saying no, that's where strength is. That's where control is. That's where respect begins. Because no creates boundaries. No protects your time. No shows that you have priorities, that you don't just give your attention to anyone at any time. And that changes how people see you. Because now they have to respect your limits. They have to adjust to your availability. They have to value your yes, because it's not guaranteed. And that's the key. Your yes should mean something. It should have weight. It should have value. And the only way to create that is by not giving it away freely. So now you have to change. Not completely, not aggressively, but intentionally. Start choosing. Start filtering. Start asking yourself, is this worth my time? Does this align with my priorities? Do I actually want to do this? And if the answer is no, say it, calmly, clearly, without guilt. Because you're not being rude, you're being in control. And control is what builds respect. So stop saying yes to everything. Stop giving your time away freely. Stop reacting to every request. And start choosing. Because every yes you give should be earned, not expected. And the moment you understand that, you stop being weak and start being respected.
Your phone lights up. A message. And almost instantly, you respond. No delay, no pause, no thought. Just reaction. Fast, immediate, automatic. And in your mind, that feels right. It feels respectful. It feels responsible. It feels like you're doing the correct thing. But you're not seeing the full picture. Because speed changes perception. The faster you respond, the less valuable your attention feels. Not because you're wrong, but because you're always available. And availability reduces importance. Think about it. If someone responds instantly every time, you don't feel urgency. You don't feel the need to prioritize them because you already know they're there, waiting, ready, accessible at any moment. And that removes tension. That removes mystery. That removes value. Because value is tied to limitation, to control, to unpredictability. But when you reply instantly, every time, you remove all of that. You become predictable. You become expected. You become easy. And anything that's easy gets taken lightly. That's the truth. You think fast replies show respect, but without boundaries, they show availability. And availability without control looks like you have nothing else going on. It sends a message, a silent one. I'm free. I'm available. You have my attention anytime. And people feel that. Even if they don't say it, even if they don't consciously think about it, they feel the dynamic and they adjust. They start replying slower. They start taking their time. They start treating your attention as something that's always there. Because you made it that way.
You created that pattern through your behavior, through your speed, through your constant availability. And now you're confused. Why do they take hours to reply? Why do they respond late? Why don't they match your energy? Because they don't have to. Because you already gave everything, without condition, without control, without limit. And that creates imbalance. An imbalance in attention, an imbalance in value, an imbalance in respect. Because the one who controls time controls the interaction. And right now, that's not you. Because you react instantly, you follow their timing, you adjust to their pace, and that puts you in a lower position. Not because you're less, but because you're less controlled, less selective, less intentional. And that's what people respond to: control, not speed. Because someone who has control doesn't rush. They respond when they choose, not when they're triggered. They take their time, they prioritize their tasks, they don't drop everything for a notification. And that creates value. Because now their attention is not guaranteed, it's earned, it's limited, it's controlled. And that makes people respect it. But you give it instantly, every time, and that removes its weight. It removes its importance. It removes its value. Because something that's always there is not appreciated. It's expected. So now you have to change your approach. Not by ignoring people, not by playing games, but by controlling your attention, by not reacting instantly, by not making yourself available at every moment. Because your time matters, your focus matters, your priorities matter. And if you drop them for every message, you're telling the world they don't. So slow down, pause, think, respond when it fits your schedule, not when the notification arrives. Because that shift changes everything. It changes how people see you. It changes how people treat you. It changes the value of your attention. Because now you're not reacting, you're choosing, and choice creates power. So stop being instant, stop being predictable, stop being always available. Because the speed you think is respectful might be the reason you're not respected. And nobody is going to fix that for you. You have to fix it by taking control of your time, of your attention, of your responses. Because the moment you do, you stop being easy and start being valuable.
You think people changed. You think they stopped respecting you. You think they started taking you for granted, and maybe it feels sudden. It feels unfair. It feels like something shifted without your control. But here's the truth. It didn't happen suddenly. It happened slowly, quietly, through patterns, through repeated behavior, through the way you showed up every single time. Because people don't randomly take you for granted. They learn how to treat you, from your actions, from your consistency, from your responses. And over time, they build a perception, a belief, an expectation about who you are and what you allow. That's the key, what you allow. Because every time you say yes when you want to say no, you teach them. Every time you reply instantly, without boundaries, you teach them. Every time you prioritize them over yourself, you teach them. And the lesson is simple. You're always available. You'll always adjust. You won't push back. And once that lesson is learned, it becomes normal, expected, automatic. They stop asking, they assume. They stop appreciating, they expect. They stop respecting, because respect requires boundaries, and you didn't give them any. So they adapted, not maliciously, not intentionally, but naturally. Because human behavior follows patterns. If something is always there, it becomes background. If something is always given, it becomes expected. If something is never challenged, it becomes assumed. And that's what happened to you. You became background. You became expected. You became assumed. And that's why you feel it. That subtle shift in how they respond, in how they talk to you, in how they prioritize you. It's different. Less effort, less urgency, less respect. And it hurts. Because you gave so much. Because you showed up. Because you were always there. And now, it feels like it doesn't matter. But it does. Just not in the way you thought. Because what you gave created this dynamic. Not intentionally, but consistently. And consistency builds reality. So now, you have to accept something uncomfortable. You trained them. Not with words, but with behavior. With your availability, with your lack of boundaries, with your constant presence. And now, they're just following the pattern you created. And that's why nothing will change until you do. Because you can't expect people to treat you differently when you keep showing up the same way. You can't demand respect while allowing disrespect. You can't expect value while giving everything for free. So something has to shift, not in them, in you. In how you respond, in how you show up, in what you allow. Because once you change that, everything else follows. Because people adjust, they always do, to your behavior, to your boundaries, to your standards. If you raise them, they respond. If you lower them, they take advantage. That's how it works. So stop blaming them. Stop thinking they changed. Stop waiting for them to realize your value. Because they won't. Not until you show it. Not until you enforce it. Not until you live it. Because value is not what you say, it's what you demonstrate. Through your actions, through your boundaries, through your control. So now, you have a choice. Keep showing up the same way and keep being taken for granted. Or change. Slowly, intentionally, consistently. Start saying no. Start delaying responses. Start prioritizing yourself. Start setting limits. And watch what happens. People adjust. They always do. Because now, you're not predictable. You're not always available. You're not easy. And that creates value. That creates respect. That creates a new dynamic. But only if you commit to it. Because one change is not enough. One moment is not enough. It has to be consistent. It has to be real. It has to be who you become. Because nobody is coming to fix how people treat you. You fix it by changing how you allow them to. And once you understand that, you stop being taken for granted and start being taken seriously.
There's a word. Simple. Short. Only 2 letters. But most people are afraid to say it. No. Not because they can't, but because of what it represents. Rejection, discomfort, tension, the possibility of someone being upset, the fear of losing approval. And that fear controls you more than you realize. Because every time you want to say no, but you say yes instead, you lose a piece of yourself, a small piece. But it adds up. Over time, you start noticing it. That feeling, that quiet frustration, that internal voice saying, I didn't want to do this. I should have said no. I'm doing too much for others. But you ignore it, because saying yes feels easier. It avoids conflict. It keeps things smooth. It keeps people happy. But it doesn't keep you respected. Because respect starts with boundaries, and boundaries start with no. Because no is not rejection, it's clarity, it's control. It's a statement that says, my time matters, my energy matters, My priorities come first, and people feel that. Even if you don't explain it, even if you don't justify it, they feel the difference. Because someone who can say no is someone who has standards, limits, control, and that creates respect. Not fear, not distance, respect. But when you can't say no, when you avoid it, when you replace it with yes, even when you don't want to, you lose that. You lose control. You lose boundaries. You lose self-respect. Because now you're not deciding, you're reacting. You're not choosing, you're complying. And compliance doesn't create value, it reduces it. Because now you're easy, predictable, available. And anything that's always available gets taken lightly. So no becomes necessary. Not as a weapon, not as a defense, but as a tool. A tool that protects your time, your focus, your energy, your identity. Because every no creates space. Space for what actually matters. Space for your goals. Space for your priorities. Space for your growth. And without that space, you stay stuck. Busy, but not progressing. Available, but not respected. Active, but not advancing. That's the cost of avoiding no. You fill your life with things that don't matter, with requests that don't align, with responsibilities that aren't yours. And you wonder why you feel drained, why you feel stuck, why you feel like you're not moving forward. Because you're not. You're just reacting to everything. And reacting is not control. It's loss of control. So now you have to shift. Not drastically, not aggressively, but intentionally. Start small. Start simple. Start with awareness. When someone asks, pause. Think. Don't answer immediately. Ask yourself, do I actually want to do this? Does this align with my priorities? Is this worth my time? And if the answer is no, say it. Calmly, clearly, without guilt. Because you're not doing anything wrong, you're respecting yourself. And self-respect is not optional, it's necessary. Because without it, nothing else works. No matter how kind you are, no matter how helpful you are, no matter how available you are, without self-respect, you will always be undervalued. Because you don't value yourself, and people follow that. They always do. So start changing it through one word, no. Use it, practice it, get comfortable with it, because the more you use it, the stronger you become, the clearer you become, the more control you have. And that control changes everything. Because now you're not just reacting, you're choosing. And choice is power, real power, the kind that builds respect, the kind that creates value, the kind that transforms your life. But it starts with something simple, something most people avoid, something you've been avoiding. No. And the moment you embrace it, everything changes. Because nobody is coming to protect your time for you. Nobody is coming to set your boundaries for you. Nobody is coming to build your self-respect for you. That's on you. It always was, and it always will be. So start now, with one decision, with one moment, with one word. No. And watch how your life begins to shift.
You don't need to disappear. You don't need to ignore people. You don't need to become cold in a way that destroys your relationships. That's not the goal. Because being less available is not about pushing people away. It's about controlling access. There's a difference, a big difference. One creates distance, the other creates value. And most people get it wrong. They think, if I stop replying fast, people will think I'm rude. If I say no, people will get upset. If I create boundaries, I'll lose connections. So they don't change. They stay available. They stay reactive. They stay easy. And nothing improves. Because they confuse availability with respect. But respect doesn't come from always being there. It comes from how you show up when you choose to. That's the shift. From constant presence to intentional presence. Because someone who respects themselves doesn't respond instantly. They respond appropriately. They don't say yes to everything. They say yes to what matters. They don't give attention freely. They give it selectively. And that creates balance. That creates control. That creates respect. Because now you're not everywhere. You're intentional. You're not always accessible. You're valuable. And people feel that, even if they don't say it. They feel the difference. Because your presence is no longer constant. It's chosen. And chosen attention has weight. It has importance. It has value. But to reach that point, you have to change your behavior. Not drastically, but strategically. Start with your responses. You don't need to reply instantly. Let time pass. Not to play games, but to stay in control. Respond when it fits your schedule, not when the notification arrives. That alone changes the dynamic, because now you're not reacting, you're choosing. Then move to your availability. You don't need to say yes to every request. Filter them. Ask yourself, does this align with my priorities? Is this worth my time? If it is, say yes. If it's not, say no. Calmly, without explanation, without overthinking. Because your time is yours, and you decide how it's used. And then, your presence. Be fully present when you choose to be. Not distracted, not divided, but focused. Because quality presence is more valuable than constant presence. And people notice that. They respect that. Because now you're not just there. You're engaged, intentional, focused. And that creates a new perception, a new dynamic, where people don't take you for granted because they can't predict you. They can't assume you'll always be there. They have to value the time you give because it's not guaranteed. And that's the key. You're not removing yourself. You're refining yourself. You're not becoming distant. You're becoming selective. And that difference changes everything. Because now you're not losing respect. You're building it. Through control, through boundaries, through intentional actions. And the people who truly respect you, they won't leave. They'll adjust. They'll understand. They'll value you more. Because now you're not just another option. You're someone with standards. Someone with control. Someone who values their time and expects others to do the same. And the ones who don't respect that, they were never respecting you anyway. They were just benefiting from your availability. And losing them is not a loss, it's clarity. Because now you see who values you and who just used your time. And that clarity is powerful because it helps you build better connections, stronger ones, real ones, based on respect, not convenience. And that's what you want. Not more people, better people. Not more attention, better attention. Not more availability, better control. So don't disappear. Don't isolate yourself. Don't become cold for the wrong reasons. Become controlled. Become intentional. Become selective. And watch how everything shifts. Because nobody is coming to manage your time for you. Nobody is coming to protect your energy for you. Nobody is coming to build your value for you. That's your job. And it starts with one decision: to stop being always available and start being intentionally present. Because that's where respect begins. And that's where your value rises.
You keep asking, why don't people respect me? Why do they treat me like this? Why do I feel undervalued? And you look outward, at them, at their behavior, at their actions. But the answer is not out there. It's here, in you, in your standards. Because whether you realize it or not, you have standards. Everyone does. Not what you say, not what you claim, but what you allow. That's your real standard. What you tolerate, what you accept, what you don't challenge, that defines your value. Not your words, not your intentions, not your personality, your standards. Because people don't treat you based on who you say you are. They treat you based on what you accept. If you accept late replies, they reply late. If you accept being ignored, they ignore you. If you accept being second, they make you second. And over time, that becomes your position, your place, your role, not because they decided it, but because you allowed it. And that's the hard truth. Your value is not something you demand. It's something you demonstrate through your standards, through your boundaries, through your behavior. Because standards create limits, and limits create value. If there are no limits, there is no value. If everything is allowed, nothing is respected. If you accept everything, you become everything. And everything is not special. That's the reality. You can't expect high respect with low standards. You can't expect priority while accepting being optional. You can't expect value while giving everything for free. It doesn't work, because value is built on restriction, on control, on saying, this is acceptable, this is not, and standing by it, not once, not occasionally, but consistently. Because consistency creates identity, and identity creates perception, and perception creates reality. So if your standard is low, your value is low. If your standard is unclear, your value is unclear. If your standard changes based on who you're dealing with, your value becomes unstable. And unstable value is not respected. It's ignored. So you have to fix that, not by telling people how to treat you, but by showing them, through what you allow, through what you accept, through what you reject. Because every time you tolerate something, you reinforce it, you make it normal, you make it acceptable, and people follow that. They always do, because you trained them through your standards. So if you want different treatment, you need different standards, higher ones, clear ones, non-negotiable ones, standards that protect your time, your energy, your attention, your self-respect. And once you have that, everything changes, because now you don't accept everything. You filter, you choose, you decide, and that creates value. Because now you're not easy, you're selective. You're not available, you're intentional. You're not flexible, you're defined. And defined people get respected because there's clarity, there's structure, there's control, and control is what creates value. but it requires something from you. Discipline. The discipline to hold your standards, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it creates tension, even when people don't like it, because they won't always like it. Some will resist, some will push back, some will leave, and that's okay, because those people were benefiting from your lack of standards, not respecting your presence. And losing them is not a loss, it's alignment with who you're becoming, because now you're not trying to be liked, you're choosing to be respected. And those are two different paths. Being liked requires flexibility. Being respected requires standards. And you can't fully have both, not at the same level. So choose, because whatever you choose defines your life, your relationships, your position, your value. And if you don't choose, you default to low standards, to low control, to low respect. And that's where most people stay, because it's easy, because it's comfortable, because it doesn't require confrontation. But comfort doesn't build value. Standards do. So raise them, not for others, for yourself, because your value starts with how you see yourself, how you treat yourself, how you protect yourself. And if you don't respect your own time, no one else will. If you don't protect your own energy, no one else will. If you don't set your own standards, no one else will follow them. So stop waiting, stop hoping, stop expecting others to treat you better, and start becoming someone who doesn't accept less. Because the moment you do, your value changes, your presence changes, your life changes. Because nobody is coming to set your standards for you. That's your job. And the level you choose is the level you live.
There's a shift, not loud, not dramatic, but undeniable. A moment where you stop and you see everything clearly. How you've been moving, how you've been responding, how you've been giving your time without thinking, without control, without standards. And for the first time, you don't justify it, you don't defend it, you don't explain it. You accept it fully, cold, honest. Because now you understand. You understand that being available all the time was never strength, it was lack of control. You understand that saying yes to everything was never kindness, it was fear. You understand that being too nice was never respect, it was self-neglect. And that realization, it changes something inside you. Not your personality, not your values, but your approach. Because now you don't move the same, you don't react the same, you don't give the same. You become selective, intentional, controlled. And that's where the transformation begins. Not by becoming rude, not by becoming cold in a destructive way, but by becoming clear. Clear about your time, clear about your energy, clear about your boundaries. Because clarity creates control, and control creates respect. So now, when your phone lights up, you don't rush, you don't react, you pause, you think, and you respond when it fits you, not when it calls you. When someone asks for your time, you don't instantly say yes, you evaluate, you choose, you decide if it aligns with your priorities. And if it doesn't, you say no, calmly, without guilt, without explanation. Because you're not seeking approval anymore. You're operating from self-respect. And that changes everything. Because now, you're not easy to access. You're not predictable. You're not always available. And that creates a new perception, a new energy, a new dynamic, where people don't assume, they respect, where people don't expect, they appreciate, where people don't take you lightly, they take you seriously. And it's not because you changed who you are, it's because you changed how you operate, from reactive to intentional, from available to selective, from giving to choosing. And that shift, it's powerful, because now you're in control of your time, of your attention, of your life. And control is the foundation of self-respect, Because without control, you're just reacting, following, adjusting, and that's not power. That's dependency. But now, you're different, not because you say it, but because you show it, through your actions, through your decisions, through your boundaries. And people feel that. They always do, because energy changes, presence changes, behavior changes. And when those things change, so does how people treat you. Because now, you're not the same person they knew, the always available one, the always yes one, the always adjusting one. That version is gone, replaced by someone else, someone who values their time, someone who protects their energy, someone who sets standards and lives by them. And that version gets respected, not because they demand it, but because they embody it, because they don't tolerate less, because they don't allow disrespect, because they don't give access without value. And that's the final shift, from being available to being valuable, from being used to being respected, from being reactive to being in control. And once you reach that point, you don't go back, because you've seen the difference, you've felt the shift, you've experienced the change, and you realize this is who you should have been all along. But now you are, and that's enough. Enough to move differently, enough to act differently, enough to build a life where your time is respected, your energy is valued, your presence is appreciated. But it requires consistency, because one decision is not enough, one boundary is not enough, one moment is not enough. It has to become your identity, the way you operate, the way you live, the way you move, every day. Because self-respect is not something you claim, it's something you practice consistently, through your actions, through your standards, through your control. And the moment you do that, everything changes. Your relationships, your environment, your opportunities, your life. Because nobody is coming to teach people how to respect you. You show them through how you treat yourself, through how you manage your time, through how you allow others to access you. And if you do it right, you won't need to ask for respect. It will be given naturally, because you earned it through discipline, through awareness, through control. And that's the final truth. Cold, simple, real. Stop being available, start being valuable, and become someone who is not easily accessed, but always respected.